All right, guys, welcome. Today, I'm going to talk about how to get into sport shooting. So, watch this video. If you have specific questions, please get down in the comments. I know I'm not going to cover everything, but I'm going to do my best to kind of do an introduction to what it's like to shoot USPSA's tactical games, different sport shooting events, what you're going to experience when you get there, and I'm going to touch on the gear that you're going to need to get started. So once again, get down in the comments, let me know what your questions are. Let me know what events you're going to be at this year, because I got a couple on my schedule already that I'm going to be at. Maybe we'll cross paths and shoot together. So with that being said, hit that subscribe button and let's get right into it. First off, let's talk about the gear that you're going to need. So if you're going to get into sport shooting, the very basic requirements, we're going to start with USPSA. Towards the end of this video, we'll get into tactical games and what you're going to need, just because there's a little bit more equipment there. However, they have a lot of similarities that cross over. So, do I need to go out and buy a $3,000 race gun to get into this sport? Absolutely not. So, USPSA, IDPA especially, are very easy to run what you brung. You know, if you have a Glock, a P320 SIG, a Canic, anything, a Smith & Wesson, it doesn't matter what you have. If you have a firearm that you can shoot accurately and be proficient with, you're 3/4 of the way there. You need a holster that's good. You don't necessarily need retention for USPSAs and IDPAs. I do recommend retention for the tactical games. And you don't have to go crazy, you know, like a comfortable holster. What I started with, the very first USPSA I ever got into, I had my H&K VP9 with a very simple Phobos holster, no retention on it whatsoever, and I had like a Kydex, really cheap. I think I got it in like the $1 bin at a gun shop that held 2 magazines, and I just ran it on a regular leather belt. So price to enter isn't crazy. It's run what you're brung. A good way to find events is practicescore.com. So if you're just starting this journey, if you're just deciding, hey, I want to shoot some competition, get on practicescore.com, make an account, and you can search events, whether in your area or you can search by discipline. Say, I know I want to shoot at USPSA. You can search and see how far away the closest one is, the dates. You can sign up for them right there. So Practice Score is a good tool. Facebook groups are an awesome tool as well. There's groups specific for all the different disciplines, tactical games athletes groups, USPSA, IDPA, run and gun, which goes by RNG. Most times it's gun is in the name. There's just an absolute ton of different groups. So get into groups, start asking questions, start making some connections so you know somebody there when you show up maybe. Those are great resources to get started. So let's talk a little bit about my gear journey, where I started, where I'm at now. So I started shooting USPSAs back in 2019, I think, was the first one that I ever actually competed in. And like I said, I had an H&K VP9 that was a handgun that I just had. I liked to shoot it. I was pretty proficient with it. I could be safe with it. Those are the top 3 things. Being safe is paramount. If you can't be safe and can't handle it without flagging somebody, moving and shooting is a very, very different discipline than standing on a firing line at a gun range and shooting and setting it down to reload. Being able to move with your firearm, keeping it pointed in a safe direction, and understanding you don't have to look at your feet to walk anymore or to run anymore. That's something that you should definitely practice with an empty firearm before you decide to, oh yeah, I'm gonna go run around with this thing. We don't want accidents to happen. So the main goal of all these events, no matter what the discipline is is safety. So I started with this H&K, a cheap holster, and a cheap Kydex mount for my holster mag. From there, I decided to start spending a little bit of money. I knew my belt wasn't quite rigid enough. When I would draw my firearm, my belt would allow my holster to kind of come up with it. When I draw my magazines, they tended to be in a different spot all the time. So I went out and bought like a rigid, I think it was a Condor belt from a local shop that I was near, just because that's what they had, which worked. It was more rigid and it helped me out. However, I was still having to thread it on. This was a single piece belt, like a rigger's belt. So I'd have to put it on and thread my magazine holster and put it through my belt loop and thread my holster on. And that kind of turned into a pain in the butt for me the more I started shooting. I found that the two-piece belt systems are definitely superior. So I went out and bought a Tasmanian Tiger belt with an inner and an outer two-piece. Ended up adding an Arbor Arms outer belt to that to add some cushion, because I started shooting more into the tactical world. I was wearing my firearm all day. And now I've moved to a Core Essentials two-piece belt, which I'm actually really liking. Oh, I had a Blue Force Gear grid belt in there too, which was a fantastic belt. And now I'm on that Core Essentials gun belt, like the two-piece belt with the molly on it, which I really like. So having a rigid belt, I recommend. It's doable without, like I said, try it out with what you have. There's no need to go out and spend $1,000 on a whole new setup just to go to a USPSA and find out that that's not your cup of tea. You don't really like it. You're looking for something else. So start simple. As far as firearms go, there's a ton of different classes, especially in USPSA. So there's optics, production, limited 10, open, which is like race guns and pretty high speed stuff. So really, whatever you have, you can kind of grow or stay low and play different games. Like sometimes I used to run limited 10 just to have fun, and I really wanted to practice my reloads. So I'd run a limited 10 class for that weekend just to get more time reloading, which is tough, and you really have to think about what shots you're taking and when you're going to reload, especially when you have a limited gun. There's even revolver classes for some of those guys that are into that. That's not really my cup of tea, but they exist. So picking the class you're going to shoot is firearm specific. So if you have a Glock 19, you're probably just going to shoot production. There are magazine length limits, 144 millimeters. I think that rule might have changed. Definitely download and read through the rule books. No matter what the sport that you're getting into is, that's a great place to start. It'll answer a lot of your questions if you just read through the rule books. And if you can't find an answer, like I said, feel free to comment on this and I can see if I can help, or join a Facebook group. Those guys are super knowledgeable and they love helping and growing this community, whatever that discipline is. The tactical games guys are the same way. Run and gun guys are the same way. USPSA, IDPA, everybody that I've ever shot with really just loves helping everybody else and growing our community. So don't be afraid to ask those questions. There are no stupid questions. They're just stupid people. That's true. Like if you don't understand something, ask. The worst is somebody's going to say is, ha ha, and then they're going to tell you the answer they're looking for. An even better way I've found to get a right answer is post a wrong answer. Say, hey, I'm shooting 160 millimeter magazines this weekend. Good luck, everybody else. And I bet you there's going to be 15 guys in the comments saying 144 millimeters the limit. That's just an example. So there's a little bit of poking around and having fun, but that's what it's all about, man. Just growing the community, being safe and having fun, and developing your skills as a firearm shooter. So from there, you go into holsters. I started with a cheap Kydex. I still run that holster sometimes, actually. It's a good holster. There are rules about your holster position and holster length. So you're not going to run like a drop leg holster like you see in the old movies that are like Desert Storm era and like early GWAT times, guys were running these holsters down by their knee that you'd have to have monkey arms to reach, you know. Something like that's probably not going to work with you. It's not going to conform to the rules, and it's not going to give you a good platform to draw your firearm and be successful in the competition that you're doing. So look at the rules, get a nice Kydex holster, not a Serpa. Don't bring a Serpa to a gun range. Most ranges have flat out banned them by now. I know there's going to be the guys saying, oh, I shoot a Serpa and I've never had an accident. Don't be that guy. There's better options out there that mitigate that risk of having your trigger finger over the trigger when you're drawing your firearm. So pretty decent holster. You don't have to spend $1,000 on one, but spend a couple bucks and get yourself something nice. And read the rule book for your specific discipline that you're going to be competing in. From there, it goes to mag pouches. So I started out with it was a single piece Kydex that held 2 magazines in it. It wasn't great. Like, I felt that no matter how I tightened it, I'd have one that had really good retention and the other one would fall out the first step I took, even if I was just walking. So I did end up going with separate magazine holsters. I carry 4 magazines on my belt, and each one's in its individual holster that I can cant and move around a little bit, and I can place on my belt to facilitate the easiest draw for me. And I practice drawing from each one of those. When I dry fire, I don't just always have my magazine in my first pouch. Sometimes I go second, third, fourth. You know, I actually practice all the way around my belt. I recommend doing that. But it's doable with just those little like multi-holster pouches or whatever. Any way to carry your magazines, it'll work, especially getting into it. I think I shot that little cheapo $3 Kydex one for several USPSAs before I finally upgraded and ended up getting, I think I'm running some of the G codes. I ran the G codes for years and years. Big fan of the G code Scorpion line. Now I've moved on to something else that doesn't really apply to that specifically. I've grown kind of more to a tactical shooting world and not focus as much on USPSA, mainly because of the area I'm living in, and also because I found I really enjoy the 2-gun style or 3-gun style competitions. I still shoot USPSAs, don't get me wrong, and my belt setup currently, I can do that with fine. Am I winning them? Am I the fast guy out there? Hell no. There's always somebody better than you. So that brings me to another point. Getting into it, don't go in there with the mindset you're going to win it. You're probably a good shot, and you're probably pretty quick, but you're not going to win it, especially the first one. If you've never shot against a shot clock and heard that buzzer go off, it's a very, very different world. So go in there with an open mind, and especially your very first one, the paramount thing is safety. Be safe. Go slow. The slower you go, the faster you tend to be, especially if you're just getting new to firearms or if you're just new to the competition world. If you're trying to burn it down and rush to it, you're going to miss shots, you're going to get time penalties for missing shots, or you're going to be unsafe and you're going to get disqualified entirely. So take it slow and go from there. Another key piece of gear I highly recommend you get is a little pull behind wagon. So like the little beach wagons that fold up, you can throw in your trunk or your bed of your truck. Those things are awesome, come in very, very handy. I throw my spare mags in it, my ammo box in it, my water jugs, snacks. When it warms up, I take my jacket or my hoodie off and throw it in there. It's just a way to haul everything around between stages. Those little carts are a lifesaver. You're not constantly going back to the truck. You're not constantly asking somebody else for, oh, I need some gun lube, or I'm out of ammo and I have to go back to the truck to get my ammo and reload my magazines again, because that's not going to work. You're really going to hold up the process. One of those carts I really recommend. I do recommend you always bring water to the range. Most of the ranges I've competed at don't provide water. There's a few that have, but they're few and far between. Most of them don't have water there, and if they do, it's for sale. So a water bottle isn't gonna get you through the day. I'd bring a good jug of water, especially if it's hot out. And most of these competitions are during the warmer months, especially the outside ones. So bring water, bring a maintenance bag, so your lube, your brushes and cleaning supplies. A lot of guys, this is going to be the most they've ever shot in a row in a day. You know, like, you're going to be out there for several hours and you're going to pull the trigger a bunch of times, and a little bit of extra lube goes a long way on these types of things. So right then, let's get into what it's going to be like your first competition. So you found a USPSA level 1, let's say, and level 1s are nice entry level because a lot of times they don't even require you to have a USPSA membership. You can kind of get your feet wet, try it out without having to spend the $30 a year to join USPSA. See if it's something that you're even going to enjoy. I have found that the level 1 competitions, everybody's a little bit nicer and more understanding to the guys that are fresh or just getting started. You know, they understand, all right, let's not make you go first, you know, let's let you get your eyes on it and see how the competition runs before we force you into this. So level 1 match is definitely a good place to start. So let's say you found one on Practice Score and you're going to sign up for it. Go ahead and register, and sometimes it will ask you to squad right then. A lot of times that doesn't really matter. Most of the time they'll put you in a squad when you show up, but if it does ask you a squad or force you a squad, you can just randomly select one until you kind of understand what's going on there or meet some of the other guys. If you got a buddy that's going to do it with you, this is a good time to both of you sign up, both of you pick the same squad to make sure that you'll be shooting together and you're not going to be separated shooting at different ends of the range all day, so you can actually have that comfort level there of shooting with somebody you know. So you signed up on Practice Score. Day of the event, show up early. A lot of times they post either safety briefing time or first shot time. It depends on the event. Some clubs run things differently. Sometimes they'll say, all right, first shot's 9 o'clock, so the event starts at 9 o'clock. But at 8 o'clock, we're going to have the safety briefing that's mandatory. So pay attention to that. Pay attention to the emails you get, or pay attention to the notification screen after you sign up for the match that gives you the match details. The safety brief is very, very important that you attend. Get there even earlier than that, I recommend. I like to get there an hour to half hour before the safety briefing, just so I can kind of stretch out, get loose, make sure my gear's all together. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. Hopefully you didn't forget anything that first time especially. But like I said, everybody is typically very nice. So if you did forget something, ask around. Say, oh, I forgot to grab my speed loader. You know, somebody's gonna let you borrow that or help you out. For the most part, I've never ran into an issue where everybody's like, oh, hell no. I've even ran into issues where at the end of the day I'm running low and said, oh man, I need 50 rounds to shoot this last stage. I didn't realize this was a 500 round match, not a 300 round match. And guys will throw ammo around, guys will help you out. You know, we're here to build this sport. We don't want to turn somebody away because they are 50 rounds short, you know. It's not a big deal. But that gives me the time, showing up early gives me the time to go through my gear, get my belt on, maybe even check my firearm. With that being said, at USPSA especially, tactical games the same way, running guns the same way, kind of. There is always what's called a safety table. When you get there, don't just grab your gun out of your truck, take it out of the case and start playing with it. They're gonna ask you to go the hell home because nobody knows if that gun's loaded, and we are abiding by the range rules. So typically there's a safety table set up in a designated location that is for manipulating your firearm, and there is absolutely zero ammo allowed at this safety table. So when you get there, just keep your firearm in the truck, in its case, and go talk to the registration table. So go up there and say, hey, I register at Practice Score. They'll ask your name. You'll get signed up right there. If you didn't squad already, they'll assign you a squad. Or if you did squad already, you can say, hey, this is my first time, and maybe that range has somebody that's really good with first-time shooters. Or they're going to build a full squad of guys that are just kind of getting started, so you're not competing against 10 guys that are you're still competing against, but you're not shooting with guys that are in a completely different class that are going to blow you out of the water and make you feel like a jerk off for being there because they're burning it down and you're still learning the game. So talk to the registration, get signed up through them, get your squad. I tend to like to find somebody that's in my squad. They say, all right, you're in squad 2. I might go and ask around, hey, what squad are you guys in? Or is there anybody else in squad 2? If there's groups of guys standing around, make a connection there so I know at least somebody to follow around or get eyes on. At that point, they'll probably tell you, hey, the safety table is over here in this bay or in this area. That's when you can go ahead and put your belt on, kind of get your stuff sorted, leave your magazines at the truck, grab your pistol case, and take it over to the safety table. At that point, you can, at that safety table, like I said, absolutely no ammo. You can make sure your firearm's clear. Sometimes there's an RO standing there to make sure everybody's being safe. Sometimes there's not. Just be cognizant of being safe. It's all about no ammo and being safe. You're still going to point your firearm in the same direction. If you ever have to disassemble your firearm and clean it or something, this is where you're going to go throughout the day. So at that point, you can pull your gun out. If you're at the safety table, pull your gun out, clear it, check your optic, your red dot, make sure everything's ready to go, throw it in the holster, and it'll stay there. Then you can go back to your truck and load your magazines or whatever else you need to do. You know, if you need to get a snack or a drink before you get started, go to the bathroom. Maybe even if you have time, this is a great time to kind of get eyes on the stages, kind of before your walkthroughs. You can walk around. A lot of clubs are posting their stages before the events now, so you can get eyes on it and kind of start thinking about your game plan. It's hard for me to look at a picture of a stage or to look at like an overview with the layout and to really develop my game plan. It always changes for me once I actually get on stage. You know, once I get into the shooting box and say, all right, this is where I'm going to move. I'm going to shoot this target and this target, you know, really developing my plan for the stage. This is a good time to go do that while you're waiting for the safety brief to start. Walk around, depending on how many stages are at that particular event. Get an eye on it and kind of just start walking yourself through it and thinking about the game plan. It takes more time than you'd think to actually get a good plan together. So I like to allocate myself a little bit of time. If they're setting up beforehand, and it's not like, especially level 1, most of the time they're very, very open to having more guys come and help set up. It's a great time to go meet some of the guys at the club and start developing a plan while you're setting up is an absolute awesome option. So keep that in mind. If it's available, send a message to the match director or somebody else that's involved in the club and say, hey, do you guys need help setting up? I'm sure they'll be more than happy for you to come and help them out. I really got off on doing that, and then I ended up joining the club because I was involved in the setup before these matches when I first started shooting. All of a sudden I was a member of the club and really made some good friendships and really got a lot better of a shooter because I developed those friendships and was a member. And all of that was because I came and helped set up. So, all right, setup's done. You've walked around a little bit. It's time for safety brief. Almost all the time nowadays, these are mandatory. You have to show up to the safety brief, otherwise they're not going to let you shoot. These are good information for specific range rules. Some ranges have different rules that if you don't go, you won't know. And some competitions will even throw tidbits to help you along the way at the safety brief. I've seen it before where at the very end of their safety brief, they'll say there's a yellow card on bay 5. If you hit that yellow card, then you'll get an extra point or extra whatever, you know, like they might throw something like that in there. So the safety brief is always good to attend. It's normally short and sweet, doesn't take a lot of time, 10 to 15 minutes, you're out of there. They're going to walk you through the specific range rules, any specific competition rules for that day, or any specific information that you need to know about the range that day in particular. They're going to let you know. A lot of times they'll say the Pledge of Allegiance or the National Anthem and then dismiss you. They'll say, all right, Squad 2 is starting on Bay 2, Squad 3 is starting on Bay 3. So they'll tell you where you're going to start at that point, and then you break out. Go grab your wagon, and off you go to your first stage. So let's get into the actual stages themselves and how that works. So when you show up to your first stage, depending on your shooter number, there's going to be an order of shooters. Though most of the time you walk up, I like to introduce myself, so when it is my turn, everybody says, oh, it's Vincent's turn, there's Vincent. And they're not like, oh, it's Vincent's turn, where's Vincent at? And nobody knows who this guy is, so let's just skip him and go on, because I had to run and pee real quick. So I like to introduce myself, get to know some of the other guys. These guys you're shooting with are going to be your friends eventually if you keep going back. It's a really cool community once you get involved with. So introduce yourself. You'll find out where you fall in the shooting order. If you are a new shooter, this is your first time, and you happen to fall at the very top of the list, you're the first or second shooter, this is a good time to say, hey guys, this is my first one. You mind if I sit back and watch some other people shoot it before I go to the firing line? I've never had anybody say no. I asked that quite frequently when I was first getting started. The first 3 or 4 competitions I went to, I asked, hey, I'm new, I'd rather not shoot first, and that was not a problem for me ever. We don't want somebody to get up their nerves through the roof and just be terrified and then cause an accident because of that. It is a nerve-wracking or exciting experience. I still get pre-competition jitters no matter what the competition is. As soon as that safety brief is done and I'm grabbing my gear, I still get elevated heart rate, you know, kind of mind racing. A lot of things happen to the body, I think just naturally, but something that you won't expect until you get there. And once that buzzer goes off, a whole nother set of emotions comes through. So it's a good idea, especially in the beginning, to kind of sit back and watch. So when you get up there, you're going to establish the pecking order, the order of shooters, and then they're going to say, all right, we're going to have 2 minutes for stage walkthrough. This is the time where I like to find what's perceived the fastest guy. You'll see the race gun, you'll see the jersey, sit back and watch what that guy does for a second. And just take a look at the stage, have in your mind what you think you're going to do, and then watch that guy. So at this point, everybody's going to be, they're going to read the stage brief. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. They'll read the stage brief and tell you exactly what the shooting process is. Like, all right, you're going to start behind this line with your hands below your waist, and then you're going to move to this box and this box and this box are the 3 shooting positions. There's 15 targets. Whatever the stage brief is, you guys can look up a stage brief and read through it so you understand what that entails. So they'll read that, and then you go into the stage walkthrough. So at this point is when I like to sit back and I watch that guy and see what he's going to do. He's going to do it quick, so I'll get in line behind him, or maybe 2 people behind him, and see what they do, and then I'm actually going to mimic it. I'm going to go to that box and I'm going to look the same directions he's looking at and see if I can find what he's looking for. A lot of guys, you're not going to pull your firearm out and dry fire, but a lot of guys, when they're doing the walkthrough, they're mimicking like they're holding a gun. So they're going to be pointing this way, they're going to be pointing that way. A lot of guys will physically say bang, 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 and move around. So just kind of keep an eye on those guys, figure out what the plan is, and figure out how they're going to move through it. Because a lot of times their plan's a hell of a lot better than yours, especially when you're just starting out and figuring out how this whole thing works. So stage brief ends, you've walked through it, everybody's gotten a chance to walk through the stage a couple times and physically figure out how you're going to do it, how you're going to move, keeping your firearm pointed in a safe direction. Excuse me. And then from there, the first guy's up. They're going to say, John's in the hole, Ryan's on deck, and Vince is up. All right, first shooter's going to move to the line and do his thing. You know, there is a procedure at the very beginning. They're going to, when you walk up to the line, they'll say, all right, go ahead and shoot or make ready. and that's when you get to draw your firearm out, put your magazine in, depending on the stage, put your magazine in, actually throw one into the chamber, reholster, and then the RO will ask you if you're ready. And at that point, sometimes you give them a nod, sometimes you say, yeah, let's do it. Sometimes you don't say anything, it just depends on your style. So at that point, he'll be like, all right, shooter's ready. And then there's gonna be the buzzer. The buzzer delays, 3 to 5 seconds, I think, is standard for USPSA. So you don't really know when it's gonna go off. And then off you go. So you shoot your course. After you shoot your course of fire, or after everybody shoots their course of fire on that stage, help out. So everybody's gonna have to grab a roll of pasties, go around and cover bullet holes while they're scoring. You know, don't get ahead of yourself and run up there and paste all the targets before the guy comes and scores it, but kind of watch what everybody's doing, resetting steel, pasting targets, things like that. You know, follow the guy with the tablet around and score. And then help out. Do your fair share to help out. That's a big thing on the community side of things. You don't want to be the guy standing back there by the shooting line with your hands in your pockets while everybody else is trying to move the competition along. You know, it'll be a long day if one guy has to paste 26 targets and there's 6 guys standing around with their hands in their pockets. You'd be out there forever. Some ranges do it different, and some competitions do it different. So you might be asked at some point to run the buzzer or run the score tablet, which is a little bit of a learning curve. It's not hard to do, but you might be asked to do that at some point. And I find that enjoyable, especially running the buzzer. I really like the timer and the shot clock. I get to see how these guys are running, and you're following the guy with the gun. So you're really actually seeing what he's doing, and it helps me out to develop my game plan for future competitions. That's kind of a level 1 competition thing. Once you start getting into qualifiers and some of the higher matches, that a lot of times they have ROs that are going to be scorekeeping and buzzer keeping, and it depends on the range too. You know, sometimes they have a club that runs the buzzer and the timer and the score all day. Sometimes they ask everybody to get involved and help. So that's kind of range specific. So everybody shot. At this point, you'll all grab your stuff, and you're going to move to the next stage. Wait till that squad gets done shooting, and then you're going to shoot it. So there's kind of an introduction to USPSA. A couple things to keep in mind. Footwear is paramount. Take a look at the range you're going to. Get on Google Images. Look at pictures if they have pictures on their website. Are you running around in gravel? Are you running around in sand? Is it grass? Is it muddy? Just keep in mind in that what you're going to wear. Keep in mind in your actual clothes, you're going to be out there for a long time. I do a lot of shooting in Georgia. It's hot as hell out there. The sun's bright. Wear sunscreen. I always take a set of clears and a set of tinted safety glasses as the day progresses, or as the bays progress. You know, some of them might be in the shade, some of them might be in the sun. Just kind of take everything you think you might need. If you're in sand, a really good idea that a lot of people don't think about is taking brushes, so you can disassemble your magazines and clean the sand out of your magazines. Because if it's in your magazine, it's going to end up in your firearm. And that's going to become a problem for you for malfunctions and things like that. So just be cognizant of what your surroundings are going to be, where the competition's at. Get involved in those groups. If you know that you're going to go compete at a certain range at 17 rod and gun, ask questions. There's a lot of time that these specific ranges have groups that are for those competitions, or that are for the guys that are members of the range. And a lot of times you can just join those groups and start asking or getting to know some of the guys that you're competing with. Those are a great resource for you. Ask questions down in the comments here. I'd love to help you out if you have questions about, hey, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? Can I run this? I'm not a rule expert by any means, but I can at least point you in the right direction. Once again, I do recommend you download the USPSA or whatever your competition rule book is, the tactical games rule book, read through it. The USPSA, the IDPA rule book, read through it. There's going to be a lot of information in there that you might not know when you show up and all of a sudden, oh, your magazines are too long, you can't shoot a 30 round high point at this competition. We've seen it all. So that's kind of a rundown on USPSA. Once again, it's a lot of the scores nowadays are kept on practice score, which is pretty neat. They update automatically. It keeps track of it, so I can look back at all the competitions I've ever competed in, and they're all right there, which I think is a really cool feature. Once you join, if you do join USPSA, like as a member, you start getting classified as a different ranked shooter. There's different ranks you can move through, and you gain points and develop, I guess, levels, if you will, different classifications as you shoot more competitions. So I think that's a good asset, especially once you don't have to do it day one. You know, get your feet wet first and figure out if it's something you like. And then I recommend joining USPSA, joining the different groups, and definitely get on Practice Score and make an account. Almost all the competitions that I shoot are listed on Practice Score now. So let's move into some of the gear for tactical games. So the tactical games is a 2-gun event rather than just handgun. So you have your rifle and your pistol, and you're going to be moving throughout the day with both those things. The tactical games does require a 15-pound plate carrier or vest for men, and I think it's 12-pound for women, I want to say. I'm not a chick, so I unfortunately don't know that rule by heart, but I'm pretty sure it's 12. So you have your plate carrier. When you check into a tactical games, that before the safety brief, there's a gear inspection. So they're going to go and they're going to weigh your plate carrier. That has to be completely slick, no magazine pouches, nothing but your plate carrier with your plates in it. And they're going to weigh it. The goal is to get as close to that 15 pounds as you possibly can. The very first tactical games I ever did, I was just going to run what I had. I had some steel plates and like a $75 plate carrier that I bought on Amazon. And when I weighed in, it was like 23.5 pounds. And I was like, no big deal. It's 8 or 9 pounds overweight. It'll be fine. And my body paid the price for that. So now what a lot of guys are doing, they're running jacked rabbit plates, or they're running sand plates of some sort. There's several other companies out there that do it. But essentially it's like a bladder that you can fill up with sand or water to really tailor it to exactly what weight you need. So you have your plate carrier that weighs, let's say, 1.5 pounds. You can make your plate carrier weigh exactly 15. You can add 13.5 pounds of sand to those plates and get it dialed in. I do recommend you do that. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but every pound that you throw on your shoulders is going to cause pain, is the easiest way to put it. You're gonna be physically exhausted. Without a plate carrier, this competition would be difficult. With a plate carrier and your magazines on and your rifle and your pistol, this competition is fucking intense. So get your plate carrier dialed in. Like I said, you're gonna weigh it in slick. Once again, read the rule books. If you check in with a suppressor on your rifle, a light, a magnifier on your red dot, a foregrip, all kinds of extra bullshit on there, a bipod. If you check in with all that stuff, you have to shoot it all day. You cannot change your rifle throughout the day. So keep that in mind. Once again, that's pretty clear in the rule books, but keep that in mind, because I've seen guys really mess themselves up. Oh, I'm gonna check in, this is my combat rifle or my duty rifle, I'm gonna run it how I brought it, and all of a sudden they can't even get their rifle through the VTAC barricade because their light's positioned wrong. And you can't change it. If you change it, you're gonna get disqualified. So once again, read the rule book, check into that. After your gear check-in on a tactical games, you'll go to your safety brief. Once again, required, you have to attend. Excuse me. And then after that, you're gonna break out. So during the tactical games, it doesn't quite run like a USPSA. You're gonna get a time slot. So they'll send you a schedule in the morning, because you're running in groups of 5 typically, but you're going to be involved in a class of much more than that. I shoot intermediate. Typically there's between 75 and 175 guys that show up to shoot my class, depending on the competition. So you'll get a time slot. So let's say after a safety brief, I look at my time slot. I like to put reminders in my phone 15 to 20 minutes before each time slot of mine, depending on how big the range. Like if you go down to some of them, they're pretty far away. So you might have to walk 3/4 of a mile to get to your stage, which is way over there. So obviously add a little bit of extra time for movement. But you might go back to your camp and sit at your camp for 3 hours before your first competition. Or you might be first up, and as soon as they say, all right, first shots are going off at 7, and right now it's 6:45. So you got to go grab your shit and get to the firing line. So keep in mind in the schedule, they do a pretty good job of making it very clear of what time you are going to be shooting. They assign you a number. So like you'll be 215. So you're squad 2, number 15. And that is how you read that schedule, which isn't bad once you get to looking at it. It makes sense. Once again, safety is absolutely paramount. Much like USPSA's, I highly recommend you do a lot of dry firing, do a lot of practice empty. For preparing for tactical games, I like to involve fitness and shooting. Some guys don't. Some guys keep them separated. Some guys will never wear their plate carrier until the day before the competition. I like to involve all 3 of them. I'll either dry fire, or I have CO2 powered airsoft guns, so I can actually get some, I guess, response out of my training. So if I do 15 burpees in my plate carrier and I can't keep my muzzle up on my rifle with my airsoft gun, it's really easy to cheat your mind into thinking, yeah, I'm dry firing and I'm nailing that target every time. With an airsoft gun, it at least gives me a little bit of safe feedback that, oh no, I am drooping low because my arms are fatigued, or whatever that scenario might be. So I do recommend doing dry firing. I like to mix my dry firing and my fitness together just to kind of figure out where I'm at. If I'm smoking my arms and then all of a sudden I can't hold my pistol up, I know I need to focus on my arms a little bit, or a grip strength or something like that. So it gives me some feedback that definitely help. Also incorporate your moving and shooting into your dry fire drills. And this goes for USPSA and tactical games. A lot of guys go to a gun range, they've been shooting their whole life, but their whole life they've been standing on a line shooting a target. It's different once you're holding a pistol and running that way. What to do with your muzzle and how to keep it pointed in a safe direction, especially running if you're right-handed and you're running the opposite direction. It just adds a layer to the mental game of it. And once again, these competitions are all about safety. We don't want an accident. We do our best to prevent accidents. And if you're being unsafe, they're gonna shut you down and ask you to leave. So I like to incorporate that into my training and my dry fire training, unloaded, just to make sure that I'm not doing something stupid on accident and not even realizing it. A lot of times I like to film myself dry firing and shooting and moving, and I can go back and watch it and make sure I didn't do something stupid, because once you hit that buzzer and that beep goes off, you're going to really lose a sense of where your body is a lot of times. So being able to get the muscle memory of, oh, my muzzle is always pointed downrange no matter what direction I'm moving in, no matter what direction my feet are pointed in, I'm keeping that muzzle in a safe location. Being able to go back and actually watch that and confirm you're doing it, because you might be flagging yourself subconsciously, not even realizing it while you're doing it, especially as you start to progress and become faster. I think things like that are absolutely vital. Which is why you see a lot of guys posting those videos, which don't get a lot of views because it's kind of boring watching somebody else, but there's a reason they're recording themselves doing it. Seeing how you're moving, seeing, did I cross my feet and trip and have a potential to trip myself up? Did I point my muzzle in the wrong direction? when I transitioned from rifle to pistol, did I flag myself with my rifle making that transition? So there's a lot of details that you can pick up when you're dry firing and training, especially for the tactical games. Once you're layering more firearms onto it, more gear, all of a sudden you're bulkier, there's more stuff for your sling to snag on, and you're transitioning between the two. There's adding layers, it's like a cake. So walk before you run. Definitely go slow and kind of get used to your gear. Practice. And especially that goes true for your first competition. Don't go out there and try and win it. I mean, I know everybody wants to try and win it. Everybody wants to be as fast as they possibly can. But the reality is, you're faster when you're slower. There's a saying in the competition world that says, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And that rings true, especially as a beginner. You'll find that if you take the time to really be deliberate with your actions, deliberate with your aiming and your trigger pulls, you're going to progress faster than if you're going out there and just pulling the trigger as fast as you possibly can. It's definitely going to benefit you. So there's two of them. The run and gun is kind of a whole nother world. Let's get into that a little bit. Oh, another thing about tactical games before we get into run and gun. Sorry. So the tactical games, probably the coolest thing about is the community. It's fantastic. Everybody's awesome. There's a ton of resources out there. They're developing their fitness app and tracker too, so they actually have a schedule you can follow that's developed by the athletes that consistently win. So it's fitness regimes, it's dry fire practice regimes, it's everything that you need to be successful at that competition. They're putting out there. There's a ton of information. So utilize those resources if it's something you're going to get into. That is a very, very difficult competition, especially to get into as a newbie or as a new guy to firearms or new guy to competition. That one's intense. So utilize all of the resources you possibly can. Get yourself in physical shape. Get yourself very proficient with your firearms. Both of them, reloads, transitioning between the two, and then combine the two, fitness and firearms. Be proficient. Don't walk up to that line fumbling with your safety. You need to know what's going on. You need to be on that level, if you will, to compete there and do it safely. But the resources are available, so don't let that intimidate you. I'm not trying to talk you out of competing by any means, but just be safe and go slow and work on your skills before you show up at the firing line. That's all there is to it. Don't let your firearm sit in a safe for the whole year, knowing that you're going to compete this next October and you don't pull the trigger until then. Definitely want to practice. So moving into run and guns, I'm fairly new to that sport. I've only done 2 run and guns. Both of them were a fantastic time, but that adds a different level of cardio and movement with your firearms. So that's just something to keep in mind. You're definitely going to have to figure out how to run with a sling on, which is difficult. I have space at my property, thankfully, and I have a treadmill. So actually getting on a treadmill in full kit, what I'm going to carry, I carry a chest rig instead of a plate carrier for running guns. Figuring out how that interacts with my rifle slung when I'm trying to haul ass up or down a hill is definitely an added skill that you have to learn. I'm not saying it's a difficult skill, but it is a skill nonetheless. Having that interaction and being able to figure out how you're going to store your ammo and using your backpack, getting it off while you're maintaining your rifle in a safe position and not burying your muzzle in the dirt trying to get magazines out of your bag. So there's just skills that you need to learn and practice on. But once again, the community is there. Running guns are RNG all over Facebook. Everybody I've ever talked to at any 3 of these competitions, USPSAs, tactical games, running guns, everybody has been super, super nice, friendly. They will answer questions for you. They'll help you out where they can if you have questions or don't understand how something works. Some guys are going to say you need to read the rule book. And yeah, read the rule book. I'm telling you, no matter what the competition is, read the rule book, because it will answer a lot of questions before they even come up. And then after that, if something still isn't making sense, reach out to the community, because everybody in this sport, we just want to see it grow. We love the sport, and we want as many people to enjoy it as possible, because it is a blast once you get involved. Shooting against the clock, it's probably the biggest adrenaline rush you'll have. I come from a motocross background, and shooting against the clock gives me that same rush, which is pretty wild to think about. So with that, I'm gonna wrap this video up. Once again, get down in the comments, guys. Let me know if you have questions. Let me know where you're gonna compete at. I know I've got several competitions on the book this year. I know I'm gonna be at the Tactical Games in July in Iowa. I know I'm gonna be at the CMP Bianchi Cup in Columbia, Missouri. I'm gonna be at the Flagler Cup the weekend before that in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm looking at a proving grounds if I can make it to Pennsylvania or South Carolina. I'm not sure which one of those is going to work quite yet. I might even be at there's a steel challenge and a Tactical Games in Poland on the same weekend in October. So, and there's also a proving grounds that same weekend as well. So I haven't figured out where I'm going to be at, but I'm going to be shooting. I also have some local USPSAs that I'm going to be shooting at up in Devil's Hole, I think is the name of the range, in Havana, Illinois. I'll be up there, so let me know where you're going to be at. Maybe we can cross paths. Maybe I'm missing a competition that's close to me that I can make it to. So thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, reach out. So take care. Stay tuned.